I was watching a documentary on National Geographic the other day, and they had a video about a mobster, and one of the guys, maybe more than one of the guys, was put in silhouette, and they modified his voice, and it sounded something like this.
As some of you may know, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm a fan of...
And immediately I said to myself, all somebody has to do is go drop that audio. If they wanted to figure out who that person was, drop that audio into a sound editing program like this and raise the pitch up like this. As some of you may know, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm a fan of the Tom Leykis Show, which is an internet show, used to be a syndicated radio show, and it used to be a syndicated radio show that talks about relationships, but they also talks about relationships, news stories, but what I love it for is when they give life advice and money advice. And I'm going to give them all the credit for this video. They've brought this advice up a number of times. Close enough. They could also do pitch modifications to be dead on with this. It's I think 5 semitones. Anyway, point being, if all you do to conceal your interview subject's identity through audio is to pitch it down like that, you're doing them a huge disservice. So here are a few ways to properly conceal or disguise the identity of a voice. So first of all, again, what's wrong with this is I only did a pitch modification. Now your DAW will be different, and every DAW is a bunch of different steps, but you should be able to figure it out through these steps. I'm using Kakos Reaper, and what I'm going to do, I'm right clicking on my sound item, going to item properties, and then under item properties it says pitch adjust semitones, and I have it at -5, negative numbers, deeper pitch or lower pitch, higher numbers, higher pitch. I have it on -5, and it plays how it plays. You heard it already. Now that's step 1. Step 2, oh, by the way, let me show you the plugins. So this is the version that is not good. Okay, that's the list of plugins. And then the same settings, with the exception of one, are down here. I've added a coarse plugin. And this is the important part. A coarse plugin, 0% spread so that it's mono, a rate of about 3.3 hertz, 50% depth, a little bit of a delay. And now what that does, I'll play that for you. Oh, let me show you under item properties. It's actually -3 because I'll get to that step in a second. So -3 with just the coursing, actually no coursing, and then I'll add the coursing as I play.
It also talks about relationships, news stories, but what
I don't know why that it sounds like I still have the coursing plugin on for some reason.
It also talks about relationships, news stories, but what I love it for is when they give life advice and money advice. And I'm going to give them all the credit for this video. They've brought this advice up a number of times during the show, and it's great.
I don't know. Anyway. Oh, by the way, let me figure out. So if I were to actually adjust this to the proper amount of semitones by doing this, right-clicking this playback, and then see how it says increase by 1 semitone. Radio show that talks about relationships, but they also talks about relationships. Okay, so that's what I sound like. And then I'll mute this so I don't get confused. I don't know why this still sounds like I have the coursing plugin on. I don't. Weird.
Relationships, but they also talks about relationships.
Hold on, let me do this. Okay, and then mute it.
Relationships, but they also talks about relationships.
Oh, that's right, this isn't the same amount. Oh, I gotta modify this now. Hold on. So this has to be the equivalent. -3. And now modify it just so it's +3 on the playback. That talks about relationships, news stories, but what I love, I might be hearing things. All right. So that's what it sounds like without coursing sped up. And then when I add coursing, this is what you hear. That talks about relationships, news stories, but what I love it for is when they give life advice and money. Much better, but you can still hear my actual voice. So there's one last thing you need to do. So again, we had the coursing effect, and then I've already done it here. And basically what you're doing in Reaper, right click, item properties, and then we're gonna go to take envelopes, and then this is already on there, take pitch envelope, and then it adds this blue line. And then what you want to do is do a bunch of, saw or wave or whatever you want to call these looking lines of automation going up and down. I have mine going from, I think it's, so it starts at -3 because that's the overall pitch. And then it extends down to -6. But the key is that it's constantly changing along the timeline. And it's also constantly changing with the course, so that even though we have this playback set to make it, again, if I unmute this, mute the original track, play this track that's above. As some of you may know, if you follow me on Twitter, that's my normal voice for the most part. And if you just did a pitch modification, it would sound even better. But changing the playback rate, you can definitely hear it's the same. So now that we have the automation going along with the coursing, let's check it out.
As some of you may know, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm a fan of the Tom Leykis Show, which is an internet show, used to be a syndicated radio show.
And
you can't hear it. My voice is in there somewhere, and now this is what it sounds like without the playback rate modification.
As some of you may know, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm a fan of the Tom Leykis Show, which is an internet show, used to be a syndicated radio show.
So the idea is that coursing and doing this changes the pitch so much that the original voice is still in there, but it's so hard to hear it that people would be confused. I mean, it's just it's constantly changing. Now you may need to add captions because it's a little bit hard to hear it. Although I can hear what I'm saying, the intelligibility. The other option you have, oh, by the way, before I forget, if you're doing a female voice, you probably want to go in the opposite direction of pitch. Not to be sexist or anything, but it's weird to have a female voice deepened. So maybe not modified, so it's a little bit too high pitched, but that is the tradition, to modify a female voice in the in upper register. Now, I do believe when this is rendered for real, it does sound a little bit better, but again, you might need to caption it. If you really want to conceal a voice, what you want to do is overdub it. Have somebody else read what the person said during the interview, and then if you want to modify it to fake like you're concealing their real voice, do that. Otherwise, make sure, because I hate when I hear this on reality shows, they'll insert audio, cut away from the person that's talking. They'll insert audio and it's obvious that they recorded it in a vocal booth. I can hear it. The acoustics on the voice are completely different than what they were on set, in a real environment. So what you want to do, if you are going to do overdubs, number one, record with the same type of microphone or the same exact microphone if you have it. So for example, if you record it with a Sanken COS11 microphone, a lavalier microphone, or another common one is a Sennheiser MKE2 or a Electrosonics microphone. If you record it with a wireless, make sure you record wireless as well. And what you want to do is go back into a similar environment or the same environment if you can and record the overdubs there. Otherwise, it's going to sound fake. It's going to sound fake and you don't want fake. So that's about it. The other thing that I would suggest, if you are videotaping this, instead of recording a silhouette, just record the person's shadow, and then you can really conceal their identity. Because I've seen a few times where it's a silhouette, but you can kind of see the person's face still a little bit. And then if you modify it, if you take that video and up the brightness levels, you can really see the person's face again. So, you got to be really touchy when you have subjects who want to talk on camera but don't want their face or voice identifiable. And I hope that somebody who is working for one of these major networks sees this video, because it's really important that people that you interview aren't killed or seriously hurt because of what you broadcasted. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.